also it's a question of how available that data is. So, for instance, if I'm sitting in Heathrow and I'm the only revenue manager in town that knows that there's increased flight data for Heathrow on a particular weekend, but it's not like crazy a lot. It's more, right? I mean, if I'm the only one that knows, what can I do with it? Increase my prices? Nobody else knows. So, like, you know, how is that going to translate into some sort of revenue strategy that will give me a competitive advantage? We tend to think about the extremes. Hey, I'm the first one to know that this crazy event that's happening that is bringing like 50,000 people, and I'm going to know and I'm going to crush the concept. But usually, the majority of the time, it is a little bit more, a little bit less, some sort of extremes left and right. But then the majority, 98% of the time, that's what we are dealing with, and translating into something that you say, oh, I'm going to increase my rates by 10% or 20%, whatever that is. If we take that actionability, because there's more things that you can do, it's questionable. And depends also, we mentioned Heathrow, but let's say, again, like in our application, we have forward-looking data in terms of airlines, for instance. But we say to a lot of customers, just don't, you shouldn't get that. I mean, you know, you're in Dortmund, you really don't care about that. So, for instance, you know.
That's also a very, very good point there. You also need to know how you work with the data, as Vassilis just pointed out. If you're sitting in Heathrow and you have a lot of competition, and let's say on a normal weekend, you sell 50% of your inventory, you know that you will never be full, even if flights increase by a couple of percentage points. Should you really raise rates or should you stay competitive? Because if nobody's following you, basically it could even mean that you're staying with a half-empty hotel or less occupancy than you would have been before, because your comp set stayed low, you increased the rates and just went in totally wrong direction.
Yeah, you're making a very good point, Till, because it's all about how you're going to interpret that data indeed. Yeah, and you need to be sort of, you know, strategic enough and conscious of that interpretation of, hey, what does that mean now? True.
But what we take away from that discussion is basically it's all so much dependent on also our competitive landscape, right? Because if we are the only ones knowing about something in the future to happen, or there's an indicator of something could happen in the future, but no one else knows, we're simply bound to, you know, what the rest of the market is maybe doing.